We are back with some sweet Rune Cup action. This is the second Rune Cup, bringing it back again with yet another 100-person tournament. So this tournament is proven to be one of the larger NA tournaments that we currently have right now. So super excited to be able to cast this once again with my boy Boulevard at my side. It was an awesome time as always. And to get started here, we're going to do every round. Going to have every round here on the channel for you coming up this week. The very first one is actually, sorry, I take that back. Not every round. Not round one. There's some interesting things that happened round one. We couldn't actually get a full round one. But anyways, round two, we have 4LW, a pretty big Brazilian player versus MreMOEtional. Both players have been to plenty tournaments by now. And they both are pretty recognizable players in the Legends of Runeterra space. So pretty awesome round two matchup. 4LW versus MreMOEtional. Let's get into the game.
Magic the Gathering, don't play cantrips. Magic the Gathering is a little bit different. You do need to cycle through your deck a little bit better because you have lands in the main deck that clunk you up. But in other games like this, just don't spend mana on cantrips. It's not good.
Now, the last point I'll make before we dive into this game, it looks like we do have Nightfall aggro, which we were talking about, versus that Teemo Harrowing deck. But, or Ezreal Harrowing, I guess is really what it is. What about...
Yeah, and this is scary. 4LW's been on this deck, but this is another teal-red Ezreal deck that sort of got him his namesake in my mind as the guy who makes really good Ezreal decks that's super underperforming.
Oh yeah, because once he made this deck, everybody was all over it like white on rice. I mean, they were on top of this deck.
4LW played it, had a little bit of success with it, and then nobody else could do that. And now I think the reason that we see the Targon Ezreal doing so well in tournaments is because it's the only Ezreal deck being represented. And Ezreal is that strong. If you were playing a different Ezreal deck, I don't think you'd be doing any worse. I think you could be doing better.
Now, all right, so real quick, though, is MreMOEtional playing... no, this is Nightfall aggro. There's no way he's playing Hush. Yeah. So that was... One of my questions was going to be, does that matchup, ASOL versus any Ezreal deck, does Hush... Is that the difference maker? Because that could severely shut down a turn of Ezreal damage.
It kind of depends on when you get it down, because if you're not responding to a fast spell or multiple fast spells with it, it does feel a lot less impactful. Hush against Ezreal is really weird. You do need to kind of line it up into a perfect moment, and I don't think you find those moments as often as people think you do.
No, I agree. I think that everybody was very, oh my god, Hush is broken when it first came out, and we're finding that, yeah, is it a good card? Hell yeah, it's a good card, but is it broken? I don't think so. Otherwise, we wouldn't be seeing as many different decks as we are, but we do have Vile Feast being played. We were just talking about that earlier. It's not terrible. It's still being played over Unspeakable Horror, and it does grant 4LW a blocker here. So for the very reason we were talking about, being able to get that additional token for a blocker can sometimes make the difference in that decision.
Hush is so weird to judge because it feels great, and then you run into an aggro deck and you draw more than one copy of Hush, and you're just like, oh, this ain't it. This is not it.
Yeah, Hush, there's a lot of times that Hush just feels really bad. We do see the Mystic Shot come out, try to get rid of some of the aggression here. Seems like a decent target to go ahead and pluck off with the Mystic Shot inside of 4LW. But, man, Stalking Shadows, it looks like he got a Doom Beast with the Stalking Shadows, too. And that is a sweet, sweet 4 damage that he's going to get because of that. Stalking Shadows, this card, absolutely astronomically great. I love it. I love to see it in this game. I don't know if it's going to stay 2 mana forever. That's just me personally.
I think it's kind of fine right now. I actually don't...
It's not broken by any means, but...
No. But I feel like there's not actually a lot of great hits in the Nightfall aggro deck. Obviously, Doom Beast, primo. Lunari Priestess, amazing. Crescent Guardian, pretty good. Outside of that, we're getting a little bit sketchy here.
Yeah, Doom Beast always feels good to hit with Stalking Shadows. So for MreMOEtional, pick that up there. One of the things, if you are a little new to the game, looking for a little bit of an edge over your opponent, if they do play Stalking Shadows, the next card they play, if you keep a close eye on it, if it comes from the left side of their hand, you can basically figure out what they have as the ephemeral second unit there from the Stalking Shadows. So in this case, we do know it is the Doom Beast.
So something I haven't quite been able to figure out is the presence, or rather the lack of presence of Stalking Shadow in deep decks. That's sort of the one Shadow Isle deck that we're consistently seeing that just isn't running any copies of that card. And I feel like it's actually got some really good hits between Devourer of the Depths and Jaw Hunters and Dead Bloom Wanderer and all these toss cards. I'm very surprised that we haven't seen deep players run that one out. And I'm hard-pressed to imagine that nobody's experimented with it, and maybe it has just proven to be really bad, but that would honestly surprise me quite a bit.
I actually agree with you 100%, and I think that's something we might see in future weeks. As you know, the obvious addition for Stalking Shadows was aggro, and slowly but surely, I think we'll start to see it adapted to something like deep decks. Because listen, I agree with you. Getting 2 Devourers, whew, that's got to feel really good with that card. All right, so plenty of removal on the side of 4LW's hand. Playing 2, or actually, is he playing 2 or 3 Vengeance?
He is playing... I have this deck list pulled up still. He is playing 2 Vengeance. Wow, so both copies already in hand, and now is going to have a pretty good shot at clearing the board of MreMOEtional next turn with that Ezreal ability followed by a Thermo Beam, then Vengeance lining up great on turn 7 and 8. But discarding that Harrowing does mean 4LW's got to find another win condition relatively soon, and this is one of the problems that we have with a lot of Ezreal decks that aren't Karma Ezreal that play a sole Ezreal win condition is you do kind of run out of cards when you don't have things like that Karma'd Up Rummage and that Deep Meditation to help you maintain cards.
Yeah, and the Crescent Guardian, which confirmed name is Crescent Guardian. This is
Celtic Guardian.
Celtic Guardian. This is exactly what I was talking about earlier with this card just being really a lot better than I feel people give it credit for. I mean, a 5/3 Overwhelm is nothing to to bat your eyelashes at. This card is very good. It deals a significant amount of damage, usually guaranteeing at least 2 damage if there's a 3 health blocker. So this might be able to give MreMOEtional the final push he needs here.
Okay, I do want your opinion on Stygian Onlooker, because everybody looked at this card and said this card kind of sucks, and then one IQ player, it was either Sudrakon or Ian Agera, I want to say it was Ian Agera, was like, no, this card's absolutely insane.
No, I love it.
You're all sleeping on it.
No, I love it. So I love it, and it's completely balanced, right? Because it's an all-in card. It's basically, just to put it in layman's terms, as simply as I can, you're basically saying, I know you don't have a Static Shock. And as long as you know your opponent can't kill it, you're getting through a crap ton of damage with a very, very cheap unit. And in a deck like this, like if you go turn 1, what's this 2/1's name again? That gets you the
Crescent. Lunari Duskbringer.
Lunari Duskbringer. So and then Dusk Petal Dust. That's a tongue twister if I've ever heard one. So anyways, if you play something like Lunari Duskbringer on turn 1 and then turn 2 go into 2 of those, that's a potential 10 damage on turn 2. That's insane. Actually, sorry, you can't play, so it'd be turn 3. You'd have to wait till turn 3 to do that. But even so, turn 3, 10 damage is absolutely nuts. It's just whether or not your opponent has the removal for it. If they have the removal, you're not really going to be doing much. So, I like it.
All right, so I have checked. It was Sudrakon that was all over this card.
Okay, cool. And we do see here, I mean, speaking of Static Shock, he has the Static Shock, but not really going to do much for 4LW right now with these 2 Overwhelm units. God, this feels bad having to deal with both of these. This might just be game for MreMOEtional, depending on what else he has left in his hand. What's your thoughts on Cygnus, the 6-cost elusive unit?
I hate it. I tried, when I was doing my testing of the Nightfall aggro deck, just to be like, hey, let me understand how this deck plays so that I can cast it effectively. I just had a really bad time with how and when I was drawing that card.
I think that's probably the most difficult part about the deck, like if you're trying to play it, or the most difficult part to learn, I feel. But I think it's amazing. I mean, to be able, you can push through, like imagine one of these 5/3 Overwhelms, you give it elusive with the Cygnus, that's 9 damage to finish out the game, and it's 6 mana. So there's...
But if my unit already has Overwhelm,
I know,
how much do I care? I feel like it's more of a Diana activator. When you've got that level Diana and she's getting that massive attack boost, then that's probably like your primo Cygnus target. But I feel like I'm not maintaining cards well enough to really get a big Diana Cygnus turn.
No, Diana, well, that's why I mentioned something like that 5/3, right? Because, ultimately getting a 13 attack Diana elusive, like, sure, that's great, but that's not realistically, it's not realistically going to happen. So really, it's just, okay, like, if you're playing Atrocity in a deck that plays Atrocity, that's your 6 mana finisher. How much damage can the 6 mana finisher do? In this deck, this is your 6 mana finisher, and a lot of times you could possibly get your opponent down to a low enough mana where they can't effectively answer a Cygnus alongside another elusive unit that Cygnus targets. So,
You know, funny enough, I feel like when we've seen Nightfall aggro perform well in tournaments, it actually has been running Atrocity.
yeah, I have seen iterations with Atrocity. I don't like Atrocity in that deck personally, though.
I do, I think, just because Pale Cascade offers so much value with it, but it can be a little bit awkward given the amount of ephemeral units that you're creating with things like Fading Memories and Stalking Shadows.
Pale Cascade, that's a card. That's a freaking card. You want to talk about cards that have impacted the metagame. I think Pale Cascade is absolutely amazing. I think...
I don't know if I'd say impacted the metagame. I don't think it really sees play much outside of Nightfall aggro.
I don't know, man.
And the Targon Ezreal deck.
I think the ability, like... So the impact that it has on specifically aggro decks to be able to not only give you 2 attack, but replace its card advantage and draw you a card, I think is absolutely insane.
That I can agree with, but I mean, it's really only being played in like the one deck, and I think we've both kind of come to the conclusion that we're not huge fans of the Diana Nocturne deck.
No, I still prefer... Unfortunately, I still prefer discard aggro even to that. And then discard aggro I don't think is the best deck either. I still personally like the Elise Darius or Elise Nocturne or like anything that's like the whole fearsome strategy, right?
Okay, so here's something I just noticed about this discard aggro deck. So for those of you at home, this is more of a go wide strategy. We are seeing a couple copies of Crowd Favorite. We're even seeing House Spider, see a couple Brothers Bond, things like that. We only see one Mystic Shot.
Well, okay. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I don't necessarily like it. So I say I don't disagree because that just shows that he's going all in on the go wide strategy. And, you know, most of the time in card games, when you double down on a specific strategy, that's probably the way to go. But Mystic Shot is like probably one of the best cards in the game. So I don't know that you don't play Mystic Shot to favor doubling down on your go wide strategy. So I don't necessarily love that decision, but we'll see if it does him well here. I mean, right now he's still able to go wider than his opponent. I mean, he is going up against a Ezreal deck, so I don't foresee Ezreal really going too wide ever anyways, but this hurts for sure.
Yeah, this could just be 4LW getting a quick 0-2 start here in round number 2. Second harrowing, absolutely not what you wanted to see. You have no removal for this Jinx. This is disastrous for 4LW. Nothing's going to be able to stop MreMOEtional from pillaring on this Jinx, and you can't even block the damage out of that. I think you need to block this Astute Academic just to, you know, get it off the board. That is one of the... Ooh,
that is a
gotcha
huge...
off the top.
Woo! The card...
Is this a 1-mana card that's castable out of MreMOEtional? Unless it is jury rigged specifically, the answer is no, and I am hard-pressed to imagine him not playing that pre-combat.
Yeah, that would be really no... Well, I mean, unless he wants to very specifically save his Jinx from removal.
From a top-decked gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, hey, man. You know, it's funny. We don't see Gotcha as much as we might see something like Get Excited or Mystic Shot or basically any other removal. But I feel like everybody forgets that it has that second effect of, like, you know, if you draw it the same turn, you can play it for 2 mana.
It's so weird to be like, oh man, I have to play around 2 mana Gotcha this turn and every turn thereafter in case they top decked it. It's so I think it's a little bit too awkward to play around. But unless MreMOEtional picks up another Jinx right now, basically. Oh, but Augmented Experimenter will do the trick. That's the refill that you need to sort of press the advantage that you have over 4LW, throwing out the Darius emote.
I'm still pissed he's not playing Poro Cannon. He should be playing Poro. That card, and it's actually good. I'm not just saying that to meme. That card is actually good.
It's actually good. It's actually good. But this discard aggro deck is so weird to me because I noticed that like chat said that's lucky, and you really play to your top decks in a deck like this, and you have so many refill top decks, like between the 3 Jinx and the 3 Experimenter. Like it's such a weird play style where you do have to go, okay, you know what, luck is going to play into this a little bit. I do have to try and actually, you know, top deck my outs and just kind of play to that.
Yeah, well, and that's the point. I mean, this deck wants to exhaust its hand and redraw its hand, and there are enough top decks. You have 3 Jinx. You have 3 of the Augmented Experimenter. I mean, that's 6 out of 40 cards that in the first 4 or 5 turns, you got to think you're going to draw one of them, right? And we saw that he drew 2 here, so...
Well, MreMOEtional is also going with the full-on draw package. 2 Sump Dredger, 3 Zaunite Urchin, 3 Rummage, just getting through the deck as quickly as possible. But no Poro Cannon, man. Where's the Poro Cannon?
And This sucks for 4LW. I mean, you kind of have to throw your
look at those
Ezreal.
harrowings.
Yeah, they're not doing too much right now. He kind of has to throw this Ezreal under the bus here to save 3 health. I mean, he doesn't want to, but he's going to have to, and it's not really going to do much for him. Wow, okay.
Never mind. Can't even do that.
Pushing the damage. Wow. And that's...
I mean, this is going to be 8 damage pushed through. If that last card is the one Mystic shot.
I don't know. It very well could be the one Mystic shot, but I am curious to see what it is, though, for him to opt to use the get... Oh, my God. Just hit concede. Zoom in on that, baby. Pull that spell up.
On certain nights, a tide of hungry spirits swells the black mist. It carries them across the seas and revives the 6 strongest enemies that have died this game.
But not
the
tonight.
harrowing is among you, 4LW, and you will not survive the night. Reckless research on to the Rekindler, and that will be the final nail in the coffin for the Brazilian beast.
Can I just add, the emote that MreMOEtional used while you were doing that voice was perfect? What was it? It was I don't know which character it is, but he was rubbing his hands together, going.
Oh, I think that's Elise.
Is that a? No, it's not really. That's Elise.
I think so.
Wow, Jesus. I don't know. Either way, it was perfect. I envisioned your voice coming through the emote, so that's. I forgot to update the score too.
Oh, how many? I swear to God, that's the 4th rummage.
Hey, you can never play too many rummage.
MreMOEtional's just out. I would think every other card he's played for the last 2 turns has been rummage.
Wow, so 4LW going down 2-0 here to MreMOEtional to 2 aggro decks. So, woo. I mean, that might have, I mean, I know it's only round 2, but that might have answered our question as to if aggro decks are going to be the primary thing in this tournament here. I mean, we've just seen them handily take care of LW, and we've seen them be pretty prevalent so far in the first 2 rounds. All right, and there you have it, a pretty quick 2-0 there. So we're going to see what happens for the remainder of the tournament, who's going to be able to make day 2. As always, if you're looking for competitive Legends of Runeterra content, you're in the right spot. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Obviously, like the video if you did enjoy the content and you appreciated the casting of footage of RuneCup number 2, round 2. But as always, everybody, stay healthy, stay positive. I hope shit just works for you, and peace out.